Hi, I'm Venus. I've been sharing my love for this beautiful relationship dynamic for, years now. And I am beyond thrilled to announce that finally there's a matchmaking service for single women and single men who want a loving, cuckolding relationship. It's called Venus Connections. It's a personalized matchmaking service and 3-week educational program that's safe, private, and individualized for what you want. Women, you no longer need to endure the headache of filtering through blank profiles and dealing with online creeps. And men, you can stop wasting time on those fake profiles and women with all sorts of ulterior motives. Venus Connections works for you to find what you want. You can learn more at venusconnections.com. That's venusconnections.com. You deserve the relationship of your dreams. On this episode of the Venus Cuckoldress podcast, today I'm joined by my friend Pagan, who is the founder of the Four Horsemen, and he's here to give some tips about gangbangs and how to set the mood just right for the night, and also to go into depth about this controversy of race in the lifestyle.
Interracial is fucking hot. When people talk about I don't know if interracial is racist or not, I am more than happy to have the conversation. I'm not happy to engage with someone who thinks they're going to teach me that it's racist. They don't question because pop culture and movies have all shown us the guy that's on his knees in a diaper with a dominatrix and the whips and chains. So they know kind of what that is, even if they're not into it. But none of them conflate that with actual violence. No one says if you're going to go to that dominatrix, you're going to probably walk out of there and assault someone on the street because you think violence is okay. Everyone gets, no, that's in that room with that person that you're paying to do that. And then you walk out and put on your business suit and you go back, to your life. Yeah. But they can't, for some reason, sometimes apply that to the exact same thing, which is race play. In that room, there's a reason why the word play is there. No one, I would think, should conflate that with actual racism.
And tell me about this group that you have called the Four Horsemen. What's that all about?
The Four Horsemen, in a nutshell, I would say it's all about spreading the love. I don't put 10, 20 guys in a room for a gangbang or something like that. My niche is high quality guys that fit a certain criteria. And by that, some of the basic things are the guy being, well built, the guy being able to have a few drinks and be cool. I've basically done the work for you. And so when you call me, I can fill up that room with the guys you want for a smaller experience. And you can just relax and enjoy it.
So I have heard from some people that you are really good at setting the mood in the room.
But all of those things that make people go, you thought ahead. That's all you really need. It makes you feel comfortable. It makes you feel like you're in good hands and everyone can relax a little.
Welcome to the Venus Cuckoldress podcast, a place to learn all things cuckolding for the curious, the passionate, and the sexually empowered woman who wants it all. Make sure you go to venuscuckoldress.com to subscribe to the podcast and check out the Venus blog. And of course, if you love it, share it. Now, sit back, make yourself comfortable, and enjoy the show with your host, Venus.
Welcome to this episode of the Venus Cuckoldress podcast. I'm your host, Venus. Thank you so much for joining me today. And do I have a big announcement for you? I am so excited about this because this has been needed for so fucking long. I have just launched a new matchmaking service and it's called Venus Connections, and it's for single men, single women who are looking for a loving cuckolding relationship. Now, let me just begin by saying this. Dating sucks as it is, but dating in the cuckolding lifestyle really fucking sucks. There's a whole bunch of really cuckolding specific barriers that are out there. And I would say, as a woman, what you have to go through online when you're kind of trying to find a guy who's into this is so unpleasant that it's actually a deterrent for women to want to date in this lifestyle. This is what I have heard from women over and over and over again. And so I decided, you know what, there has to be a better way. So I have created this website, Venus Connections, and it is a personalized matchmaking service for people. So women don't have to be out there looking online. They can just leave that work up to us and we will find matches for them. They have a face-to-face virtual date and afterwards figure out, if you want to see that person again or not. It's super fucking simple. Like, couldn't be easier. You don't have to waste all that time online and going through all of that bullshit. So I am so thrilled and so happy and so relieved actually to announce that this is finally available, and the need for this has been absolutely huge. So if you want more information about it, you can just go to venusconnections.com. That's venusconnections.com. Oh, and one more thing. So I think I've mentioned once before that I am on Full Swap Radio. So fullswapradio.com is an internet radio station and they have some really cool shows on there. So if you tune in on Tuesdays at 5 p.m. Central Time, you'll be able to listen to the Venus Cuckoldress podcast. But also if you're just kind of like hanging out, working from home, whatever, or driving or whatever, their shows are pretty cool. So you can just have a listen in the background to whatever happens to be on at that time. And it's some pretty interesting stuff there. In the show notes for today's episode, I will post the link to ASN Magazine. And I'm really, really fucking proud of the article that I have in there right now. And there'll be a new one coming up soon in September. It's so cool to be writing for 3 million readers who likely have never heard of cuckolding before. So that's pretty awesome. Check it out. Now it's time to start my conversation with my friend Pagan. I'm super excited. So let's get started right after this.
Interracial, black and white. The beautiful and sexy relationship dynamic that we love, now in a lifestyle clothing brand you can wear with pride. Don't sacrifice quality and comfort any longer. With Maison de Neige, you get both in fresh, empowering looks for every occasion, for everyone. From the streets to the sheets and everywhere in between. Check us out at maisondeneigescouture.com. Maison de Neige Couture, modern fashion for the modern revolution.
Joining me on the show is my friend Pagan, who I've been friends with for a little while. I'm super excited to have him on the show. We've chatted actually on Pillow Talk before. He's been a guest on Pillow Talk. We've talked on several other platforms, but I'm really excited to have him here for a full episode today to talk about what it's like to be a black bull in this lifestyle. So welcome, Pagan, to the show. Say hello to all the listeners.
Hello, all of Venus's wonderful listeners. This is amazing. I'm on the Venus Cuckoldress podcast. This is amazing. I'm a friend and I'm also a fan at the same time. So I'm geeking out that I'm with Venus. This is great.
Thank you. So, Pagan, how long have you been a black bull in this kind of lifestyle? How long has it been now?
Well, that's an interesting question because I guess part of that question is when do I consider myself being a bull in the lifestyle? Because as you have pointed out and many others, there's a difference between just being a black male who plays single in the lifestyle and being a bull. But without that amorphous transformation in there, about 20 years total that I've been playing as a single black male in the lifestyle, which I think is what your question was.
Yeah. 20 years. That's a long time. That's a lot of experience. That's a lot of learning and growing as you go, I'm sure.
Yeah.
So when was it that you went from just playing as a single guy in this lifestyle to really embracing that role of a bull?
I'm not exactly sure because it's a gradual thing, So, maybe in like the second half of this past 10 years, it's been more of a thing. And that just came from exploring things naturally. And, I'm sure it's much like many of your cuckold or hot wife couples where they start off just with what they know, which is being in a swinging lifestyle. And then the more you learn about yourself and what's available, you're able to say, oh, well, I actually fit, I think, more into this category or this. And so about 10 years, I've been leaning more towards realizing what I am. I'm predominantly dominant, and I have other qualities that just lean towards being a bull more than just like a single guy who plays. So, yeah. And part of that was learning more about cuckolding and hot wifing and what the bull's role is there. And I'm like, oh, that's more me than just more of the cursory thing that you start off with, which is, you find a party that will accept a single guy and you go to it.
Yeah.
That's like the height of everything. And then you start to be able to pick and choose what your slot is,
And tell me about this group that you have called the Four Horsemen. What's that all about?
The Four Horsemen, in a nutshell, I would say it's all about spreading the love. I'm busy. I'm a professional. I am not independently wealthy where I can just, sit around in a bathrobe like Hugh Hefner all day. So there's a lot of people I meet that will like me. And basically it comes down to them saying, do you have a friend? And I'm like, I should make sure that those friends live up to a certain standard. So I started to gather guys that were like-minded and that fit certain qualities. So if a couple is looking for a multi-guy experience, a lot of times what they do, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I am saying it can be fraught with some potholes in the road. Mm-hmm. A lot of times what they do is they just find these guys on the internet, guys that don't know each other, have nothing to do with each other, and they put them in the same room some night and expect that to go really well. Sometimes it goes well, but sometimes it doesn't. Because as you can imagine, guys who don't know each other getting in a room, they don't know you. Everybody doesn't know anybody. It's not great. Yeah. So what I created was just a small group of guys. The reason why it's called the Four Horsemen is because it sounds kind of cool, but also because I wanted the number 4 to indicate it's not literally 4. If you want 2 or 3 or 5, that's fine. But I don't put 10, 20 guys in a room for a gangbang or something like that. That's just not, I'm not knocking that. I've been to that. That's fun. It's not my niche. My niche is high quality guys that fit a certain criteria. And by that, like some of the basic things are, the guy being, well built, the guy being able to have a few drinks and be cool, personality stuff, all those things that you look for when you're trying to find a guy. I've basically done the work for you. And so when you call me, I can fill up that room with the guys you want for a smaller experience. And you can just relax and enjoy it. So that's what the Four Horsemen do.
I'm pretty sure you're going to get a lot of calls after this episode.
And just to be clear, when I apologize, I started off saying it's about sharing the love. What I was starting to say was just like, I can't possibly meet all the people that want to meet, to your point just now.
Yeah.
So, if I'm able to pass along some friends of mine and you can connect with them, that brings me joy. I really love people in a lifestyle like you, Venus. We actually have compersion towards it. We want people to enjoy themselves. There's no jealousy. It's the opposite of that. You want to share your friends and have them meet your friends. So that's really what's behind the Four Horsemen.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally get that mindset of wanting to share the experience with others. And because like when I come across guys who I really like in this lifestyle, bulls that I'm just like, oh, I'm so lucky to have this guy in my life. I want to share him with other women because yeah, you're right. There's no jealousy. There's none of that. I don't feel like I own this guy or anything like that. He doesn't feel like he owns me, but it's just that experience is so wonderful that you want other people to experience that as well. So I can understand kind of, sharing the love part.
It's also, for me, it's one of the most interesting things about the mindset of a cuckoldress, because she is more often than not that way about her cuck at all.
Yeah.
So it's I love open-minded people. Just as a heads up, that's a theme that's going to keep coming up with me.
Yep.
So it's like the definition of open-mindedness. A cuckoldress has both things going on at once. And that's a fascinating personality, especially in our world today where so many people have mindsets that are very, compartmentalized, or they're just slaves to an ideology. We see this in our world across the political spectrum and other things. And I just really enjoy people that are of two minds of things. And that creates a whole person that is just more nuanced and interesting.
Absolutely. I think that's what really kind of drew me into this whole lifestyle. In the beginning, I didn't really understand the whole one-sided open part. And then I sort of, I was intrigued, okay, what is this? Then I was learning to like appreciate it. And now I'm like, it must be one-sided open.
Yeah. And I dare say that first person who didn't understand it wasn't even really you. And what I mean by that is was the you that has been put through the mill of society or religion or family or, whatever, or all of those things to some degree. We all have been put through the mill, And so once you get back to who you really are, like what actually makes me happy, or what do I really think is right or wrong? Not what I was taught was right or wrong. What are my actual morals that I'm born with? My conscience tell me. Once you get back to that is the awakening that I think a lot of people have. I know it was the case for me. And so, getting out of that old programming and into the new reveals to you who you really are and who you should be,
I totally agree. Absolutely. So what is it about the interracial aspect of this lifestyle that I'm assuming you love and appreciate it.
You assume correctly, yes.
Okay. What is it about that because I've talked about this on the podcast before, why I love interracial cuckolding so much. I mean, it's not in every cuckolding relationship, that's for sure, but there's something about it that really appeals to me. What is it, or can you share your perspective as a Black bull in this lifestyle? What is it like for you?
Yeah. We're jumping right into it. I like it. Yeah, it's a crazy time right now to talk about race. It's a hotbed issue this past, a year ago this time in America and across the world, but especially here, we had literally our second civil rights movement in our history. That was of note. And the interesting thing about this one was predominantly white people were at the front of it. That was unheard of, and so we're talking about race in this time. Who knows what the conversation is going to be 5 years from now? I know it was different 5 years ago, but when we're talking about that, I just want to acknowledge that, it's a time when people are very sensitive about things. And I completely 100% understand that. That said, I am going to be candid and tell you my point of view, and it's just mine. And hopefully it will embolden others who share it to feel like they can speak out about what they believe. But I make space for people who don't agree as well. So that's my preface. But that said, interracial is fucking hot. It's always been fucking hot for me. Part of that is some of that stuff I told you about, I'm sure. Part of the reason why, if I was raised in a vacuum in Plato's cave and there was nothing in the outside world and I had no idea that my skin was different from another person's skin, and I had no idea about the social taboos around interracial sex and all that, I may not be the person I am with the interests that I have. So I'm saying that to say that, like, it is one of those things that I think, depending on the person, is going to be something that is attractive to you or not. And I think that being a Black man in America and dealing with some of the things that you have to deal with completely 1,000% feeds into why interracial is interesting to me. And I would apply that as well to the white female who's interested in Black men. It's the same thing. We're all products of our environment. What's really interesting to me, though, is that racism, class distinctions, people, for instance, in your family or sometimes even in your society, keeping you away from another group of people just because you don't live together, taboos that are created around these negative things in many ways become a positive way to deal with some of those negative things. We've all know the cliche, my daddy told me not to be around Black guys. Well, that doesn't typically work in the long run. It actually tends to go the other way. Or, I never was able to be around white girls because that, wasn't allowed in my, the Black community. It was frowned upon. That's the same thing. So when you get a chance to do what you want to do, it creates a taboo around it, which creates a kink around it, which is fucking fun. So just as a global, thing about interracial, I know that I'm an intellectual in terms of how I approach these things. So that might have been a little heady, but I do think that for an American Black male and across the world, but especially here, that is a lot of what is behind it, especially to kind of explain it to people who are curious about it. Like, because there are genuinely, I think, not as many as they say they are. But there are some genuine people who are like, yeah, I just don't see color or race as a thing. Right. That is completely legitimate as well. But this is just to try to help them understand, those of us who do, and the filter through which we're doing it is not necessarily a negative thing. It is actually sometimes taking a negative and owning it and making it a positive.
Yeah, I would totally agree with that. That's why I was a little... I wouldn't say a little. I was quite shocked to hear recently, the discussion around racism in the lifestyle, in it being in a negative way, because I've never experienced that and I've never come across it. And maybe and I was just kind of like, well, where have I been? Like, stuck in a bubble for years? Like, is this because it's always been for me. And the people I know, it's always been interracial cuckolding has always been about love and adoration and respect and, and so to think about it in a different way, I was like, well, that really sucks.
It does. It does. It sucks. And this is going to go back to the open-minded thing. I also, though, want to try to hear the people who feel like it's a negative thing in some way and just hear what their point of view is. And I've learned a little bit about it myself and just trying to put on the other hat, So it is an opportunity for us to have a continuing conversation about how we approach these things. And I think that there's nothing wrong with that. You and I, Venus, want people to come into these discussions with an open mind.
Yeah.
We meet those people all the time. Just go on Twitter, go on the internet in general. There's this thing where I have my point of view and my biases, which we all have. We all have biases, right? And then I'm going to go in and look for something that reinforces my point of view. That actually, they think what I think. So I'm going to retweet that. And then I don't have to think about what I think. I'm just seeing people that agree with me.
Yeah.
I think that that's one of the most dangerous things that's happening in society. Every one of us has a device in our pockets now that is reinforcing our biases. There are bias machines that help us to reinforce them. And so I'm saying all that to say, when people talk about like, well, I don't know if interracial is racist or not, I am more than happy to have the conversation. I'm not happy to engage with someone who thinks they're going to teach me that it's racist. But if it's someone who was interested in having an exchange with me and seeing my point of view, like we're doing right now, when I look at their point of view, I am able to kind of learn things and see things. I'll give you one example real quick.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if someone says, why is it called a Queen of Spades? I don't have an answer for that. I don't know the, person who originally came up with that term.
Mm-hmm.
And we know spade is not a positive term for Black men. We know that. We know that Queen of Spades probably is not intentionally trying to be negative. So there's two things butting up against each other there, right?
Right.
It's what the Queen of Spades says that she is, honoring and putting a Black man on a pedestal and all these things. And then there's people who aren't like us who are just like, yeah, that's the term. But when those people analyze it, they go, well, then why are you using this term? I don't have a great answer for that. I'll be honest with you. So there are conversations to be had. There are things to learn from each other. So who knows? Maybe 10 years from now, it'll be called Queen of Kings. But this is not a hill that I'm going to be honest, that I'm going to personally die on. I've embraced the term. I think it's fine.
Yeah.
But I'm frankly able to embrace a lot of kinks in this lifestyle. For those who don't, though, I do want to hear them out. And so, that's part of why your podcast is amazing. There's things like this we can discuss,
I agree. When I got over the initial shock of it all, I, felt like, okay, this is an opportunity to have the discussions, to really kind of think critically and analyze this lifestyle to figure out, okay, where can we improve?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because I don't think any of us who are in this lifestyle want it to be negative in any way whatsoever.
Right.
We celebrate this lifestyle. We enjoy it. We share it. I advocate for it. And I would not want it to be in any way negative towards Black men or anyone else in this lifestyle. So these conversations do give us the opportunity to kind of analyze things and figure out where we can do better.
Yeah. I think that what it is it's curing ignorance, podcasts like yours and the work that you do. And I don't mean ignorance as a pejorative, like calling somebody a dummy. It's like I mean it by the dictionary definition. It's just a lack of knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm ignorant about scuba diving, so that's fine. I've never researched it. I've never done it. There's gaps in everyone's life that they're ignorant about things. You have to be. You can't know everything. The only thing that I have an issue with is if I go onto a scuba diving blog and start telling people how they should scuba dive and why this is wrong, and I haven't done any research, I don't know what I'm talking about, and I've never seen their point of view. That's where I start to go, okay, you've made your decision to act out of ignorance and not go any farther. That's fine, but we're not likely to be friends.
Yeah.
So I think that what you're talking about is really great because there are some things in the lifestyle. There are kinks and things that, and especially around interracial things, that some people just feel are fundamentally wrong. And I think that some of that is based on not knowing exactly what people are doing and why they're doing it. And that's just ignorance. So, if you're able to get the word out and help them at least see another person's point of view, you don't have to agree with it. You don't have to jump into interracial. But if you see their point of view and see, okay, maybe this isn't a damaging thing that I thought it was.
Yes.
That to me is a day well spent in terms of putting the word out and educating people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, would you agree that there's a lot of that within kink, the kink world, this misunderstanding of what it's actually all about, and these judgments that are made on assumptions?
Yeah. I mean, look at cuckolds, just the cuckold as a male in our very, lizard brain, backward thinking society about what quote unquote masculinity is, putting a cuckold up against that. It doesn't stand up very well, but they don't realize sometimes that you shouldn't be questioning a cuckold. You should be questioning what your point of view on what masculinity is. Is it the archaic things that we've been doing for thousands of years? Or is it where I personally think society is heading, where masculinity is starting to change and become something that is a little different? And, one example I'll give that I think most people, even if they're not into this kink, they understand it, and I'll apply it to the interracial aspects of it. If people get involved in interracial, there's even aspects of interracial called race play, right? Yes. Where you're specifically calling out the racial aspects of it even more so, and that heightens the kink, right?
Right.
So there are people who think that race play is just wrong. Like, you're using that word, oh my God, or you're doing this thing, or the scenario that you're setting up for your fantasy is just wrong. But those same people may not be realizing that race play, for instance, is a subset of BDSM. It's under that umbrella. They don't question, because pop culture and movies have all shown us the guy that's on his knees in a diaper with a dominatrix and a whips and chains. So they know kind of what that is, even if they're not into it. But none of them conflate that with actual violence.
Right.
No one says like, oh, well, if you're going to go to that dominatrix, you're going to probably walk out of there and assault someone on the street because you think violence is okay. Everyone gets, no, that's in that room with that person that you're paying to do that. And then you walk out and put on your business suit and you go back, to your life. Yeah. But they can't, for some reason, sometimes apply that to the exact same thing, which is race play. In that room, there's a reason why the word play is there.
Right.
No one, I would think, should conflate that with actual racism. In fact, the people who play those things out are sometimes underneath it all confronting their own racism, or maybe not their own, but the things that they have been, steeped in from the beginning. And they're trying to help themselves psychologically get out of that and work on it or work through it. So there are many examples in BDSM. There are women who have had horrible things happen to them in the past with assault and things like that. And they actually, in their sexual play, explore those things, which seems like a contradiction, but it's actually a healing thing where they have power over that. And they're able to create a playroom and explore it in a way that's healthy and allows them to heal. I would just implore people who think that race involved in these sexual matters is wrong to kind of open your mind a little bit and look at it that way and see how other people are doing it, because that is really what's behind it. To your point, I've never met anyone who had anything but positive views towards Black men when it comes to this. So,
okay, that's good to know. I love that example too. That's like the perfect example.
Yeah, it's worked for me a few times when talking to people.
So the key to all of this is having an open mind, having a discussion, and learning more about this anyway.
Yeah.
In all aspects, I guess. All right. So I'm going to circle back to something more fun to talk about.
Cool.
Circle back to the Four Horsemen. You're based in LA, correct?
Yes. Okay.
Although
I didn't start doing that here. I started it back when I was living in New York. So, it was interesting. Like I had a group of guys there, and then I had to kind of reboot when I came out here.
Can we have like a whole network across the country?
I wish. You don't know how many people have asked. I wish I could, but that's part of the gift and the curse of wanting to vet guys. Is the curse is I can't vet a guy in your hometown in Nebraska. I might happen to know a guy, but I can't say that he's one of the guys that I can recommend necessarily,
Right.
So that is kind of it's the two sides of that sword, Yeah.
So I have heard from some people that you are really good at setting the mood in the room when it comes to a fun night. Okay. So tell me, what are your tricks of the trade?
In the average occasion, like it's not like, you're going to a hotel takeover and, you bring a sign for your door and lights and stuff. And, it's not as elaborate usually. But for the average occasion, I do have a bag or two with me. And so for mood in general, I think one of the main things is picking the right space before you add accoutrement. You know, everybody doesn't have the ability to always, you know, get the nicest suite, you know, in the city or whatever. But if you can just step it up a notch, just a little bit, and save your pennies and try to just make sure that if you're doing something at a space that's like a hotel or whatever, that you do pick something that is the right size for the amount of people that are going to be there. We've probably all, you know, in the lifestyle been to that party that just had a few too many people for the size of the you know, rooms or room. So I think that that's like the first thing is just choose wisely. And then also if you're going to be meeting someone, you know, setting the mood starts before you get in the room. That might just mean picking a hotel or a space. If you're going to do it at your house, picking a bar nearby to just meet up ahead of time. That also has a nice atmosphere. Because, you know, that is what's making someone comfortable to go back to that other room with you. So just making sure that you can like hear them, you know, it's not too loud, making sure that, you know, the service in the place is cool. Like you've been there before is probably what I'm saying. So that's another thing to do. And then once you do get to the room, there's all kinds of fun things you can do. You know, like I have these, for instance, red light bulbs that I have like in my bag, and you can usually just swap them out real quick, not all over the place, but just like in maybe a particular area. And that kind of creates like a really cool mood. It also creates like a lighting that is very complimentary. You know, I would, to be crass, I'll call it strip club lighting, where people tend to look better. But you know, all jokes aside, that is kind of like a cool mood setter. Music is huge. Music is, you know, as soon as you can get the music going. And there's like really cool, like ambient things that I've learned. Like there's an artist called FKA, like formerly known as Twigs, that I think is amazing. Not only her music, but if you were able to put a projector on, which I do sometimes, that's another little cool thing where like you're not at the mercy of what's on the hotel TV or whatever, but you can kind of put on some something that's sexy. Her music videos are amazing just to put on. They're all like she's like I would say a modern female Prince. There's also another thing I would recommend. I'm giving plugs to like music, but there's one other I would recommend. There's a, I don't know if this is a person or a band or what, but it's called QSENSX. QSENSX, I believe is how it's spelled. But that artist has like hundreds of songs and they're just numbered. So he started with 1 and now he's in like the hundreds or whatever.
Oh, wow. And
each one of the songs, doesn't matter if you play 399 and then you play 2, they all kind of flow into each other magically. And it's really cool, like background music. So there's things like that you can do. Find your artist that you love. Those are 2 of mine. But having those mood setters, I think helps a lot. And yeah, you know,
I love that.
There's all these little tiny things you can do with lights and with stuff. And I don't know if you know who you're going to be with, if you've got those waterproof sheet things to put under the bed, you know, all those things that make people think.
Need those.
Yeah, I thought you might like that one. But like all of those things that make people go, huh, you thought ahead. That's all you really need. It makes you feel comfortable. It makes you feel like you're in good hands and everyone can relax a little more. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think that all the guys out there need to be taking notes on this. And I'll post the links to the artists in the show notes. But a projector, like, dang, you're going all out. That's great. Amazing.
Well, they're really cheap to get now. And the cool thing about a projector is on your phone or your iPad, whatever you have, you can just put it on there as opposed to like, I'm trying to find this DVD and do they have a DVD, you know? So that I think is one of those things that's kind of like allows you to quickly just put up things. And one of the things I love is as soon as you start picking something that's like, you know, if you're going to put, let's say at a party, we see porn, or, you know, playing sometimes.
Yeah.
Everyone has different stuff that they like. Right. So I feel like the more contemporary the porn is, the more somebody's going to say, oh, that's cool, but that's just not my thing. So what I have done recently is go real retro with the porn. Like do something from like the 90s. There's this guy, I believe his name was Andrew Blake in the 90s, that did these really high end, flashy. He would go to Paris and Prague and all this. But it's very 90s. Like you could tell by what they're wearing and stuff like that. And so people just relax. They're like, oh, this is vintage, so it's all good. And it's just fun to watch. So doing things like that kind of equalizes the crowd and everybody can just enjoy themselves,
Oh my God. That would be so awesome to watch. Seriously.
Yeah, it is pretty fun. Like people just like, oh my God, look at that hair or look at that style. It is still it's sexy, but it's just not something that people tend to like say, well, that's not my thing. Because they're like, yeah, well, this is from another time.
Oh my goodness. Okay. I need to have a cold shower. I have all this stuff going on in my mind right now. I feel like I need to plan a trip to LA.
Oh, yes, please do. Please do.
I just want to say thank you for doing this interview with me, Pagan. You are absolutely one of the most special people in my life. Oh. I'm so grateful to have you in my life. And you've been such a great friend in so many ways. You're such a beautiful soul in and out. The conversations that we've had have been amazing since day one.
Yeah, Venus, your listeners know this already, but I can tell you guys that IRL, as well as, virtually when you listen to her, she is just as much as an amazing person in real life. Venus is a person who was doing this before this was your main gig, right? You were doing this because you felt like this is something you believe in, and you were working another job and doing the podcast and also the blog and helping people just on the internet. I can't say how many countless people I have sent to you, women that were trying to find their way, and you helped them along. So for me to do this is just me trying to give back to you for everything that you've done. And I'm happy to do this anytime. There's so much that we can talk about, as you said, but just having this opportunity has been great. So I thank you.
Thank you. All right. So where can people find you if they want to find more information? Like I said, I think you're going to get flooded with requests soon, but
yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Pagan Black Bull. And I have another one that's more centric to the Four Horsemen, but you can just hit me up there. That's probably the most direct way to talk to me. And yeah, we can go from there. I'm always happy to hear from other people in a lifestyle, to debate and talk and build each other up and learn from each other. So that would be a pleasure for me.
Wonderful. Okay. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Pagan. I hope to have you back again sometime soon.
That would be great. Thank you, Venus.
All right, that's going to be it for today's episode. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. I had a really great time. I hope you enjoyed it as well. Make sure you go to venuscuckoldress.com. That's where you can subscribe to the podcast, as well as check out the blog and some really great recommended resources as well. If you'd like to support the podcast, thank you so much. You can go to patreon.com/venuscuckoldress. And there's lots of really great perks for becoming a Patreon supporter, including the elusive Venus Vault. If you'd like to follow me on Twitter, you can reach me there. My handle is at cuckoldressv. Thanks for joining me today, and we'll see you next time.
Hello, Venus Cuckoldress devotees. I'm Miss Nookie, a cuckoldress and the founder of Dating Kinky, a dating and sexy education website. I was happily introduced to cuckolding nearly 8 years ago by my partner, and I've been an enthusiastic participant ever since. And like Venus, who is beautiful and brilliant, by the way, I'm also passionate about spreading the good word on this amazingly intimate lifestyle. For example, I have a new book about cuckolding coming out April 29th, an online class based on personal experiences, research, and conversations with other happy cuckold couples,
a set of 20 erotic tales about cuckolding, and finally, a weekly podcast answering cuckolding-related questions from all of you cucks, stags, cuckoldresses, hot wives, and bulls out there, co-hosted with the stunning Anne Cuckoldress and Venus herself. Want to know more? Just send an email to cuckyou@datingkinky.com. That's cuckyou, all one word, @datingkinky.com.